Il mio potere.
Claudio Serafino.
Claudio Serafino is one of the new additions to the Tekken 7 roster.
A stylish yet damaging character, Claudio has a strong focus on whiff punishment and wall pressure,
both of which are made even scarier when he gains access to Starburst, a unique power-up that vastly enhances some of his pre-existing moves.
Claudio also boasts what many consider to be the best hopkick in the game due to its massive range and evasiveness.
Claudio's toolset is incredibly small, yet somehow complete. He has great moves to gain frame advantage, strong tracking and homing moves,
and even has amazing counter hit tools, allowing him to play both keep out and rush down efficiently.
Due to his incredibly small move list and low execution, Claudio is a great character for newcomers to the game.
And despite being one of the simplest characters to play,
the Italian Exorcist, when paired with the right hands, can be a very menacing character. Claudio has a very basic 1-2 jab string at 10 frames. This is a double high string that jails. Its damage is slightly above average for a 1-2 jab string, and on hit it is +6, allowing the player to basically do whatever they want afterwards. Outside of punishment, this is also one of Claudio's pressure tools at range 0, as on block it is only -1, allowing you to still have many options afterwards, though do note that this string is fairly linear.
For 12 frames, Claudio has several different options, all of which serve different purposes. 422 is Claudio's highest damage 12 frame punish and is the only one that grants him Starburst, which is an essential part of Claudio's game plan. As such, this is the recommended punish most of the time, particularly if you don't already have Starburst. This should only be used as a punish though, as on block, Claudio is left at a severe disadvantage at -26, and despite the pushback, sharp players will definitely punish you for it. So this isn't a move that you can really use outside of punishment.
Forward 2-1 is another forward 2 variant that isn't as damaging as forward 2-2, nor does it give Starburst. Instead, it leaves your opponent right next to you, as they are left in crouch, giving you a standing mix-up. This is generally not preferred, as it doesn't really give many benefits over the other 12 frame punishes.
4-3 is Claudio's next best 12 frame punish. On hit, it wall splats, gives massive frame advantage, and causes ballerina stun, allowing Claudio to continue enforcing his pressure with wall running 2 or lows like sidestep 4. Outside of punishment, this is also one of Claudio's counter hit launchers, which we'll get back to in the key moves section when we take a look at his counter hit tools.
2-1 is an okay punish if you want to keep your opponent close to you, though similar to forward 2-1, this doesn't really offer any real benefits over forward 3 or forward 2-2, thus this is also not generally preferred as a punish.
For 13 frames, Claudio has his down 1+2. This is his fastest mid punish and can be used if you need to punish a move that has high evasion. This also knocks down on normal hit and wall splats at the wall. Aside from it being a mid, it isn't really anything special, so in most cases, forward 2-2 or 4-3 are still preferred.
At 14 frames, Claudio has two options, back 2 and down forward 3-1. Back 2 is similar to forward 2-2 in that it also grants Starburst. This move has surprisingly massive range, making it an excellent whiff punisher as well, particularly if forward 2-2 cannot reach. It also has surprisingly incredible tracking, and is virtually unsteppable except when used at longer ranges, though even then it beats sidestep left, which is Claudio's weak side anyway. However, where it really shines is when Claudio already has Starburst. Punishing using back 2 when you already have Starburst enables Claudio to do a tech trap, which can be extremely rewarding. We will get more into several of Claudio's tech traps later in the game plan section.
Down 4-3-1 is a must-use punisher when Claudio is close to the wall, as it wall splats both when you're directly next to it and if spaced correctly, even from a fairly long distance away. This allows you to follow up with wall running 2 or down 4-3-2, depending on the distance as your wall combo. This is also one of Claudio's key tools in the neutral, which we will get back to in the key moves section.
Claudio's most infamous move, his hop kick, is a premium generic hop kick that has massive range, making it a consistent launch punisher in most situations. This is easily the best hop kick in the game alongside Shaheen's due to its massive range and evasive properties. Outside of punishment, it can also occasionally be used as a panic move, as it low crushes just like most other hop kicks, and even evades certain characters' key moves, like Dragunov's running 2 or Leo's back 1-4. Though do note that like most other hop kicks, it is minus 13, so it can be punished. This move is both an excellent block and whiff punisher, and is just one of the most well-rounded launches in the game. Claudio's other 15 frame launch punisher comes in the form of his twin pistons.
This does a solid 10 more damage than his hop kick, so if you are confident that you can launch punish your opponent, you can use this instead. Do note though that unlike his hop kick, this isn't a move that you can really throw out without being sharp, as it is launch punishable on block.
At 16 frames, Claudio has one of the strongest launches in the game with his Starburst forward 1+2. This has massive range, allowing you to launch punish many moves with large pushback on block, as well as serving as an excellent whiff punisher. On hit, this does massive damage and leads to a unique spin animation for you to easily continue your combo. Do note though, that you should only use this as a punish if you have Starburst, as without it, forward 1+2 isn't exactly super rewarding, and on block is also fairly unsafe. And in the situation that you are not in range, you will likely get punished heavily. We will discuss more about this move in the key moves section when we cover Claudio's Starburst toolkit.
Finally, at 17 frames, Claudio has his back 4-2 as another long range punisher. This grants Claudio Starburst if he doesn't already have it, and also wall splats at the wall. If you have Rage, you can even convert this into the Rage Drive for a full combo. Both back 4-2 and his Rage Drive will be elaborated further in the key moves section.
For while standing punishment, Claudio has a pretty generic while standing 4 at 11 frames. Compared to other while standing 4s, it is completely unexceptional at -6 on block and +5 on hit, though it does have slightly above average damage.
At 12 frames, Claudio has his while standing 1-1. This is an amazing block punisher, as on hit it grants massive frame advantage at +9. It even does surprisingly decent damage at 27 points. This isn't really a move to use outside of punishment purposes, as on block it is -12, as well as being a mid-high string that doesn't jail, allowing the second hit to be ducked and launch punished.
It does, however, have some uses in certain tech traps, which we'll get back to in the game plan section of this video. For 14 frames, Claudio has two options in full crouch down forward 2-2 and full crouch down forward 2 1+2. One of the best punishers at the wall is full crouch down forward 2 1+2. This is a double mid string that on hit causes a wall bounce, allowing for massive damage if you get in a wall combo. Besides punishment, this even has surprisingly big range, making it a viable whiff punisher as well. On block, it is only -13, so it's not too risky when compared to its reward.
The other extension, full crouch down forward 2-2, doesn't cause a wall bounce, but instead grants Starburst on hit. This is better used when you're not at the wall, as not only does it grant Starburst, but it also gives better Okizeme than full crouch down forward 2 1+2. Do note though that unlike full crouch down forward 2 1+2, the second hit is a high, so it can be ducked and launched if you just throw it out besides for punishment purposes. In which case, you'll have to mix it up with full crouch down forward 2 1+2 to keep your opponent on their toes.
Claudio's 15 frame launcher from while standing comes in the form of his while standing 2. This is a launcher that immediately grants Starburst on hit. It has pretty decent range and the combo damage is fairly high, but it is -14 on block and has a slightly wonky hitbox, so it can't really be thrown outside of punishment purposes.
Claudio's other launcher from crouch is his hop kick. While in most cases while standing 2 is preferred, occasionally the hop kick is useful. While standing 2's hitbox is slightly worse, and its primary combo can be a little iffy if you're slightly off axis to the right. And the combo routes of the hop kick are also more flexible, so in those specific cases it might be better to go for hop kick instead.
Claudio's running 2 is a staple move in his game plan. It is fairly similar to Dragunov's running 2, though it is slightly faster and is 1 extra frame more advantageous on block at +7. This is Claudio's main pressure tool from up close, as it allows him to do many of his strong moves without being interrupted or counter hit. A common frame trap is to do running 2 on block into a down forward 2, as this will counter hit launch your opponent if they try to push a button and also cannot be sidestepped. Down forward 2 isn't safe though, so you can use back 3 as a safe mid to check them instead. If they are conditioned not to push buttons or sidestep, you can also follow up with more running 2s for continued pressure. While this move is amazing, it is a high, so it can be ducked, and from afar it's fairly telegraphed, so sharp opponents will duck and launch you for it if used predictably, in which case you can also try to mix it up with forward 4. This can also be step to the left or sidewalk to both directions. As one of the best tools in Claudio's arsenal, make sure to practice instant while running, as that will greatly increase the usefulness of running 2.
Forward 4 is another one of Claudio's pressure tools. It is fairly similar to a Mishima forward 4, as it is +4 on block and forces crouch, giving Claudio some good options afterwards like back 3, though this can be stepped by players on the 1p side, back 1, or with lows like down back 4-3. On hit, it does a nice chunk of damage, though its properties remain exactly the same, so you get the same options as if forward 4 was blocked anyway. On counter hit, this knocks down, granting a mini combo with a follow-up down back 3 or 3+4. Forward 4 is quite linear, so be sure to condition your opponent with homing moves first before using this in the neutral.
Up forward 3 is Claudio's orbital. Unlike most other orbitals, this doesn't actually launch on normal hit, but instead only on counter hit. On block, it also gives frame advantage at +2 and forces crouch, and on normal hit gives +7, making this a decent pressure tool. This is a little slow however, and is also incredibly linear, so make sure to use this carefully.
Claudio's 1+2 string is one of the best whiff punishment tools in the entire roster, and on top of that, it's also fairly stylish. At 17 frames, it isn't exactly ideal as a block punisher, except in very specific situations, though due to its fairly massive range, it works great to whiff punish with. On hit, it does incredible damage, and also grants Starburst. If you do the forward back 2 variant for the last hit, this will do 2 points more damage as well, and will be signified by a different sound cue Claudio makes. If Claudio already has Starburst, doing a hop kick immediately afterwards will catch people trying to stand up. This can be beaten by holding back to wake up, in which case back 1 will catch them. This move is only really used for whiff punishment, as it is incredibly punishable on block at -14 and can be stepped in either direction.
Claudio's forward 2 string is pretty much the same as his full crouch down forward 2 string, which was previously discussed in the punishment section, except this is just done straight from standing. Forward 2 1+2 is a devastating double mid string that causes a wall bounce. It also has fairly massive range, making it an excellent whiff punisher. Overall, this is just one of the better wall bounces among the roster. Forward 2-2, just like full crouch down forward 2-2, is the better option when not close to a wall. It grants Starburst, gives better Okizemi, and is also the safer option to throw out, as it is only -2, though the second hit is a high and thus can be ducked and punished. Do note that if you choose not to commit to either string, forward 2 by itself is quite unsafe at -18. Though due to the fear of the second hit, most people will let this move go unpunished.
Back 4-2 is another great whiff punisher. As discussed in the punishment section, this is a delayable double mid string that wall splats and grants Starburst on hit. Back 4 however can be stepped to the left, which is Claudio's weak side. On block it is only -12, so it isn't too risky considering its reward on hit, and the second hit cannot be interrupted unless it's delayed.
Claudio also has a different extension in the form of back 4-1. This is a safe mid-high string that also wall splats but doesn't give Starburst. It is also sometimes used as a screw in combos and can also be a more low risk option if you're not confident that back 4-2 will connect and don't want to get punished for it. As a bonus, the second hit also launches on counter hit. As the second hit is a high, it can naturally be ducked, and just like back 4-2, it can only be interrupted if it is delayed.
Back 1 is Claudio's primary homing move, and one of the best moves in his arsenal. This is a mid that has deceptively good range, as Claudio takes a mini step forward during its animation. and even on Whiff is a little tricky to punish as he also takes a step backwards afterwards, giving Claudio a decent amount of space to set up Whiff traps. Similarly on block, while it is -5, due to the backstep Claudio takes, it can also set up Whiff traps, especially if the opponent likes to jab a lot. It can even occasionally evade certain highs like jabs during its animation, but do note that it is not a high crushing move. On hit, this knocks down and wall splats. This is an amazing move, so be sure to utilize it. We will get into how to make full use of back 1 at the wall later in the game plan section.
Forward 3 is Claudio's other main homing move. Overall, it's fairly similar to back 1, though with a few key differences. It is also -5 on block and leaves a nice distance afterwards to set up Whiff traps. But on Whiff, it is also much easier to punish, as unlike back 1, Claudio doesn't make a step backwards. It is also a high, so it can be ducked if predicted, and it doesn't knock down, but rather gives huge frame advantage at +15, allowing for continuous pressure afterwards. On counter hit, this also causes an immediate screw, granting you a full combo, and will also do the same if you catch an opponent out of mid-air. This is one of Claudio's best moves in the mid-range due to its massive range and homing properties.
Back 3 is Claudio's closest equivalent to a generic down forward 1. This is one of his most used tools at close range. It is equally as fast as a down forward 1 at 13 frames, though on block it is -4 instead. This move has longer range than many might think, and on hit it grants a massive +7, allowing Claudio to do pretty much anything he wants afterwards. Due to it being a knee, it cannot be parried by generic reversals like RSKYLUCK. It also has an extremely low hitbox, meaning it can catch and punish many low stances like Ling's AOP or Eddie's relaxed stance. This is an incredible all-round mid-poke to not just chip away at your opponent, but also a great mid-check after gaining frame advantage. Though do note that it can be stepped easily to the left.
This also has a delayable extension in the form of back 3-3, which was a new Season 3 addition. This is not a natural combo on normal hit, but rather only on counter hit, and only if it's not delayed fully. The second hit by itself is also a counter hit launcher, meaning if your opponent likes to push buttons after blocking your back 3 to take their turn, this is a great way to shut them down. This also allows Claudio to occasionally gain some mental frame advantage after back 3, as after some conditioning, the opponent might be more hesitant to push buttons afterwards. On block, it is only -12, so it isn't too risky to throw out every once in a while. Though, just like back 3 by itself, it can be stepped fairly easily to the left. Do note though that if you delay the string fully, this might catch opponents who sidestep and prematurely try to punish the string.
Claudio's down forward 4 is a pretty generic down forward 4 mid-poke. It's fast at 13 frames and can be used as a quick long-range mid-check. Even though it is -8 on block, the distance afterwards, similar to forward 3 and back 1 on block, allows you to comfortably set up Whiff traps. It is quite linear though and fairly slow to recover on Whiff, so make sure to be careful when using this against more movement-heavy opponents.
Down forward 1 is another great mid-poke. While it is a little slower than a traditional down forward 1 at 15 frames, it is incredibly rewarding on hit at a massive +9, and isn't even too bad on block at only -2, allowing you to still comfortably move around afterwards. This even has surprisingly good range, though it can be avoided with a sidestep to the left. As previously mentioned in the punishment section, this has a launching extension, though it isn't delayable and is launch punishable on block, so it's quite risky to throw out. Claudio's down forward 3 string is one of his best mid pokes. Down forward 3 by itself can be stepped to the left, and on block leaves him at -7, though most people would be pretty reluctant to challenge you afterwards in fear of the extensions.
The first extension is down forward 3-1. As previously mentioned in the punishment section, this is a delayable, wall-splatting knockdown double mid string that is amazing to catch opponents pushing buttons. This is good especially when they have their back to the wall and is a natural combo even to maximum delay. This can also occasionally be used as a combo ender for a high wall splat. At -12 on block, it's not too risky to throw out and is commonly used as both a whiff and block punisher. It can also be used as a frame trap after gaining frame advantage like after a running 2 on block, though do note that it can still be sidestepped. This string is somewhat hit confirmable, though it's much easier said than done and often more based on intuition than visually confirming the down forward 3 connected. All of these combined makes down forward 3-1 one of, if not Claudio's best tool at the wall.
Down forward 3-2 is the other extension out of down forward 3. It's usually preferred if you want to very safely check your opponent from taking their turn after blocking down forward 3. It is equally as delayable and hit confirmable as down forward 3-1, but only at -2 on block. The trade-offs though are that it doesn't wall splat and is a high, meaning the second hit can be ducked. Thus, this can be used after your opponent has been conditioned not to duck down forward 3-1.
Due to the oppressive nature of Claudio's running 2, players will start to feel inclined to duck it if they have been bullied by its pressure. In this case, forward forward 4 is a great tool to mix them up with. This is a knockdown mid that is surprisingly fast and can even be done out of a running state, making this great to mix up with running 2. It also wall splats and isn't too negative on block at -5. However, it is incredibly linear, so if your opponent prefers to sidestep running 2 rather than duck it, then forward forward 4 would be much less effective as a mix-up option. In which case, you can then use something like forward 3, since it can also be done out of a running state and will catch people sidestepping.
Back 1+2 is Claudio's only power crush. It's a relatively slow mid with armor frames that start up on its 8th frame. This knocks down on normal hit and wall splats. However, this is fairly situational as it is -13 on block, is very linear, and also takes extremely long to recover on Whiff. Overall, this is a fairly average, if not slightly lackluster power crush that isn't anything too special.
Claudio's Magic 4 on paper seems fairly generic. It is a 12 frame high that launches on counter hit. However, this is actually a very situational Magic 4, as it is nearly impossible to convert off of it. From close range, you can convert with 2-1-2, though this only works if you're right up close to the opponent and only works when you're precisely on axis, though even then, it's wildly inconsistent. If you're slightly off axis to the left, you can use down 1-2 instead.
This does have an extension in 4-3, which will lead to a much easier combo to convert off of. However, while this is delayable, it's not really counter hit confirmable, meaning you have to gamble letting it rip, and sharp players will duck and launch punish you for it as the second hit is a high. It can also be interrupted when delayed, granting the opponent a float combo. Overall, Claudio's Magic 4, while technically usable as a traditional Magic 4, is fairly limited by its risk and situational use cases.
Claudio's down forward 2 is one of Claudio's main counter hit launchers. This is a quick mid that has incredible tracking and launches on counter hit. This can be used in frame traps like after a running 2 or forward 4 on block. However, you'll really need a read on your opponent to do so, as this is a little risky at -13 on block.
Claudio's back 3+4 is his other wall bounce move. This is a backswing blow with some evasive properties and is also a homing move. While this is an okay wall bounce, it is quite risky at -14 on block. And even though it is somewhat evasive, it's still relatively slow and can still be interrupted by longer range moves anyway.
Up forward 3+4 is a double mid string that knocks down and wall splats. This isn't really used out in the open much since it is both unsafe and linear, but rather its primary use cases are for combos and situational punishment like Link's AOP 4-3 where you need to use it to get a float combo.
Sidestep 4 is Claudio's primary low. This is undoubtedly his strongest low, doing a nice chunk of damage, giving 6 frames of advantage on hit and hitting grounded opponents. Even on block, it's only -12, thus it is a fairly low risk yet highly rewarding low. Other than its massive frame advantage on hit, Sidestep 4 also pulls the opponent in slightly, making it very easy to continue up close offense, either with instant running 2s or with frame traps like down forward 3. This move can be sidewalked to the left, though only if Claudio steps to the left to do Sidestep 4. If he steps right, this move becomes completely unsteppable. While it also has decent range, it's quite terrible on Whiff, and it is a little slow without any high crushing properties, so you'll have to still be a little careful of when to utilize this move. If Sidestep 4 lands as a counter hit, you'll get a guaranteed mini combo with a dash up down back 3 or 3+4, just like counter hit forward 4. This is easily Claudio's best low and is a key essential to his pressure and mix-ups at the wall.
Down 3 is Claudio's main low poke. This has very good range and tracking, being able to beat sidesteps to either direction. Just like sidestep 4, this is also one of Claudio's best ground hitting tools. The main issue with this low though is that it is launch punishable on block, though due to this being a relatively fast low and looking like many other generic low pokes, it often goes very leniently punished. On hit it is -3, so you basically lose your turn. However, due to its speed and high crushing properties, this is a fantastic low poke to chip away at the opponent.
Claudio's down back 3 is his chunkiest and highest damaging low. At 24 frames, it's right on the cusp of being seeable, and on block it is launch punishable at -15. On hit, this forces crouch and also gives 3 frames of advantage, though Claudio himself is left in crouch, so it's a little hard to make good use of this frame advantage most of the time. This does track slightly to Claudio's weak side, but it can be sidewalked anyway, and can be stepped to the right very easily. As a bonus however, this does high crush and give a combo on counter hit. Overall, this is a fairly risky low that should be used sparingly due to its high risk.
Claudio's down back 4-3 is pretty similar to Law's down 4-3. It is a decently ranged low high string that is neutral on hit and leaves a small distance between Claudio and the opponent afterwards. Due to the pushback and frames on hit, it basically resets the game back to neutral, so what you decide afterwards is basically dependent on how you like to play your neutral game anyway. On block however, this is quite risky as it can be launched. Even if the opponent stands up after blocking the first hit, they can still punish with a full launch anyway, so do be aware about that.
Claudio's down 4 is basically a generic down 4. It's incredibly fast at 12 frames and is -13 on block. It also high crushes and will catch people stepping Claudio as it has great tracking. Just like most other down 4s, this is just overall a great move to poke and annoy your opponent. Now we will get into Claudio's unique power-up, which comes in the form of the previously mentioned Starburst. You will know when Claudio has Starburst if he goes after certain moves on hit, or if his right hand has a glowing blue flame. These are the following moves that grant Starburst: back 2, running 2, forward 2-2, back 4-2, while standing 2, forward 2-2, full crouch down forward 2-2, 1+2 1+2 forward 2, and finally his rage drive.
With Starburst, he can power up some already existing moves. However, the moves that can take advantage of Starburst are for the most part quite weak and even potentially useless without it. Thus, it is only recommended to use these moves when you have Starburst activated. Do note that once you use a Starburst move, regardless of whether it connected or was blocked, you will still use up Starburst, so you need to hit one of the previously mentioned moves again to gain it back. These are the following Starburst moves.
Easily Claudio's best move out of Starburst is his forward 1+2 1+2. Without Starburst, this knocks down on normal hit, but with Starburst, it becomes an incredible long-range high-damage launcher. This has amazing range, making it primarily a whiff punisher, and is also extremely delayable. Uniquely, the second hit cannot be interrupted, even if the string is delayed fully. Do note though, that the first hit by itself is launch punishable, so more often than not, it's probably better to finish the string, since it is safe and will catch punishment attempts anyway. The main risks with this move, however, are that it is fairly linear and is also quite terrible on whiff.
Down 1-2 is a double mid-string that is mainly used as a pressure tool. At a massive +8 on block, it basically allows Claudio to do pretty much anything he wants afterwards. This is a natural combo on hit, knocks down, and even wall splats. This is also primarily used as a screw move in combos, as his combo routes with the Starburst version significantly increases his combo damage. The main problem with this move is that the second hit can be parried or stepped to the right extremely easily, so opponents who are familiar with the matchup will punish you heavily for just throwing it out.
Down 2-2 is Claudio's only low Starburst move. This is not a natural combo, meaning that even if the first hit connected, the second hit can still be blocked. If you do land the second hit, it grants a full combo, so it is quite rewarding. It is also not too risky at only -12, and the second hit cannot be low parried even if they block the first. However, it is generally not advised to use this against very sharp players, as they will be able to block it on reaction, so you would basically be wasting your Starburst. Thus, you can occasionally use down 2 by itself to keep your opponent on their toes, and then use the full string to potentially catch them off guard.
Down back 1+2 is a fairly gimmicky string. This is a double mid string in which the second hit is actually an unblockable. While it is a natural combo, this is more often used as a round ender, as the second hit will catch people off guard since it is unblockable and uninterruptible. This move's biggest clear-cut weakness, however, is that the second hit is ridiculously linear. As such, even though this can catch many people off guard, good players will definitely punish you for it, making this a pretty bad and gimmicky move with no real merits at high level play.
Lastly, back 4-3-2 is the final Starburst move. This is only a natural combo if the second hit connects as a counter hit, which is pretty much never going to happen. The third hit will then grant a full combo. This move's primary use though is as a wall combo, since it is Claudio's highest damage wall ender. Aside from that, it isn't really super useful, as the third hit can be sidewalked to the right, and pretty much no one will get hit by it anyway.
The final key moves worth mentioning are his command throw and rage moves. Claudio only has a single command throw in his forward 3+4, which is a 1+2 break. While this throw is okay and leads to some decent positioning for Okizeme, many sharp players will instinctively break this due to the telegraph dash in motion before the throw. Due to the fact that he doesn't have any other command throws to mix up with this isn't anything too special.
Claudio's rage art is completely unexceptional. This is a mid that is wildly unsafe on block and does massive damage on hit. The only thing special about this rage art is how flamboyant and stylish it is. Claudio's rage drive is by far one of the more unique ones on the roster. It is an extension of his back 4-2 string that not only makes the move +7 on block, but also grants him Starburst immediately, skipping the typical power-up animation. At +7, it basically allows him to immediately assert pressure on the opponent with moves like Starburst down 1-2 or sidestep 4. On hit, this becomes a launcher granting a full combo. As previously mentioned, back 4 has incredible range. Hence, whiffing against Claudio becomes far more risky when he gains access to rage. Many Claudio players make the mistake of using this rage drive aimlessly once they gain access to rage. It's better to condition your opponent into ducking first, either with running 2s or with lows like sidestep 4 before throwing out the rage drive, rather than just wasting the rage immediately. Overall, this is one of the more decent, if not slightly unique rage drives in the game. Claudio's game plan can be reduced to a very simple yet effective flow. In the neutral, he relies a lot on simple pokes like back 3 or down forward 3 to test and check the opponent up close.
If the opponent is more patient or has been conditioned to be patient, then Claudio can up his offense with both forward 4 and running 2. Running 2 in particular is especially important since not only is it the backbone of Claudio's pressure, but with each blocked running 2, the opponent gets pushed further and further towards the wall, where Claudio's offense really shines.
A common problem, however, is that every single one of these moves can be beaten with movement to the left, which is Claudio's weak side. Hence, make sure to use his strong homing moves like back 1 and forward 3. These not only serve as moves to dissuade steppers, but also excel at helping Claudio maintain space control due to their long reach and pushback on block.
Claudio's defense is incredibly strong in the mid-range, since he has strong whiff punishment tools like his 1+2 string or his hop kick, meaning that whiffing against Claudio at around range 2 is often ill-advised.
Once the opponent has been pushed to the wall, either by combos or with constant running 2s, this is where the magic of Season 3 Claudio begins to shine, with the trinity of back 1, sidestep 4, and down forward 3-1, alongside the occasional instant wall running 2s, 1-2 jabs, and back 3, Claudio can very easily dictate the pace of the match at the wall. Back 1 wall splats from afar and beats people who try to sidestep his key moves like down forward 3. Sidestep 4, being such a dangerous yet low risk low, is fantastic not only to set up frame traps with down forward 3, but also to condition the opponent to start ducking, opening them up to Claudio's powerful wall splatting mids.
On the flip side of things, Claudio struggles much more when on infinite stages. He lacks really good power lows aside from sidestep 4, which as good as it is, requires Claudio to be up close to the opponent, and due to its poor whiff recovery and slow speed, makes it very susceptible to getting counter hit. This means that Claudio without the wall can have a very hard time opening a defensive opponent up, and it's for the very same reason that he has difficulty making a comeback when at a life deficit.
While Claudio isn't exactly a setup heavy character, he does have a bunch of tech traps which allow him to do some very damaging setups, one of which is at the wall. After doing a wall splat off axis, doing back 3 or down forward 3-2, then jumping over will give you a guaranteed dig jab, followed up with a while standing 1-1, which then gives a guaranteed down forward 3-1, and if your opponent doesn't tap forward, even a hop kick for a back turn combo.
Claudio even has a tech trap during a combo. By timing your up forward 3+4 after forward 4, you can pick up an opponent who tries anything else other than standing up. Even after some counter hit moves like sidestep 4 or triple roll 3+4, the up forward 3+4 setup works as well. For much more info on Claudio's tech traps, RSKYLUCK has much better and complete guides on them, which will be linked in the description below.
Claudio having the smallest move list in the game is both his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. His moves all work in tandem to give him a very simple yet effective game plan, while having low execution to boot, making him great for beginners and players who prefer a simpler, more streamlined playstyle. But yet, it is also because of his small move list that he struggles in certain matchups, due to him being much less scary in the neutral than at the wall. Claudio's basic nature also means that players will have to develop solid fundamentals to play effectively, as he is extremely easy to be predictable with in the long run and doesn't really have any gimmicks. However, don't underestimate Claudio's simplicity and strength, as this Italian exorcist still remains as one of the most well-rounded characters in Tekken 7. Thank you everyone for watching this video guide on Claudio. This was a major project 2 months in the making and would not have been possible without some massive help. This video was a huge collaborative effort, so I'd just like to give some appreciation to the people involved in making this video possible. A major shout out to Wayne, also known as Hito, for providing the first draft of the script that served as the baseline for this video. He also continuously helped with the revised script, recorded some footage, helped to co-narrate this video, as well as giving some ideas for the video during its editing phase. He is basically the backbone of this entire video, and this guide would not have been possible without him. Another shout out to Tecklee, aka Spyronin, for not only helping give feedback during the writing process of the script, but also creating a Tekken input generator application. Previously, for combo notations, I had to manually stitch icons together in Photoshop, but thanks to his app, it basically makes the process a lot easier and quicker. For those interested in this app, he is working on refining it before releasing a public version, so do stick around for that. Lastly, this sick outro music was made by Rain, aka Sean, who is a good friend of mine and makes top-notch music. The outro music of my stream highlight videos was made by him, and I'd like to thank him for making more great beats for me to use. He also spent the time to do the English captions for this video, which naturally took a lot of time and effort, even though he didn't have to. I'm glad to have had help this time around, as I had traditionally made the character guides completely by myself. Please follow all 3 of them on their social medias, links of which will be in the description. This video would not have been possible without them. Aside from that, please follow me on Twitter, as I post most updates there, and join the Discord server if you'd like. I've also done Season 3 guides on Devil Jin and Dragunov, so please do check those out if you are interested. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Take care.